Aldwyn, over to you if you're microphoned up and
I
ready to go.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm the Vice-Chancellor of Regents University London, and you'll be delighted to know that I'm not going to do a sort of 20-minute selling job on the university, because none of you are likely to come to my university or indeed send students to it. So what I'd like to do is try and talk about my perception of where higher education is going globally and the impact on the UK higher education system over the next few years. In addition to being Vice-Chancellor at the university, I'm also Chair of the Independent Universities Group, among which are our BPP and a variety of others, which I'll just talk about a little bit in a minute. They are the alternative sector with degree powers and university title, and in a rather special position, particularly at this moment in time. I'm also on the Degree Awarding Powers Committee of QAA, and I'm on HEFCE's Strategy Committee for Management, Leadership and Governance. So I get an interesting overview of a variety of things, and indeed the Observatory on Borderless Higher Education, which is international. And I'm very worried. I'm very worried about what's going to happen potentially to Uk Aichi competitively in the world over the next few years. I think we're about to enter a very turbulent period where we could absolutely shoot ourselves in the feet. Just a brief introduction to the Independent Universities Group. What we try to do is say, you could be one of many different kinds of organisation and be a quality organisation. The only thing I think that links us is an absolute connection to a commitment to quality. We want to separate ourselves from all the pirates who are out there who have been ripping off the student loan company, the government, and damaging the reputation of the British higher education system. And you can just see that we're quite varied. We have Ashridge Business School as one of our members, Arden University that is 100% online, a BPP University which is a blend of online and face-to-face and a variety of different topic areas. Relatively low-priced institution, at £6,000 for a degree. The value for money offered to students is exceptional and the quality is very high. IFS University College, which is in banking and finance, which comes out of the old Institute of Bankers. Ourselves, who are high-priced. We have $15,000 a year for undergraduate students. Many do 4 years because they do that year out. But we offer a particular kind of experience which is quite different, and students are prepared to pay for that. Richmond, the American university, offer UK and US degrees, and then the University of Buckingham, which is the longest independent university, non-state funded, has been going now since about '86. It's still quite small, but it's got a very interesting new Vice-Chancellor in Anthony Selden. And the University College of Estate Management, which is predominantly online and global. So very different institutions, but sharing this commitment to quality and not taking money directly from the government. I might say another word about level playing fields later on, but David Willits once said, beware what you wish for. You can be a level playing field, but it might not be level in the direction you wish it to be. What's special about Uk Aichi? Well, we are the gold standard. We are the place that international students want to come. Our degrees in this country are respected by everybody at the moment, and I think there is a real threat to that right now. We've got that proven quality. We've had the QAA now for a number of years who, they're not perfect, they know they're not perfect, but people around the world envy the QAA. And now that the question marks are there over the QAA, I'm getting letters from all over the world from quality agencies. The QAA is getting sackfuls of letters saying, can we trust you any longer if you're going to break up the system that you've got? We have absolute world-class research in this country, and that does feed into the programs that we have. We don't all have to do it, but we have world-class research. The position of the UK economy and the history of higher education. People want to come here. They want to come and study in the UK, and they want to stay on in the UK. And what are we doing at the moment? The UKVI are about to bring in legislation to ensure that universities have to ensure that their students are thrown out of the UK at the end of their study period. I don't know how we're going to do it. We're probably going to handcuff students and take them to the airport. But we're going to be de-licensed if we don't demonstrate this. And it's coming in It was Carl Ligo of BPP informed me of this earlier last week. We have the English language. It is the lingua franca. We are not just speakers of English, but the fact is that there's a lot of evidence that shows that although loads of other people are teaching in English now, people for whom it's not their first language are less effective teaching in English. So coming here and listening to native English language speakers is good for international students. We've always had amazing innovative pedagogy in this country. Just think about the Open University, for example, one of the most influential institutions ever in the history of the world. Sadly, I think, slipping off the planet at the moment, but it has been hugely innovative and different. We've done loads of things in online learning in this country. We've really sort of pushed the envelope. And we're British. People like coming here. It's a nice place to be. We are still the favourite place in the world for students wanting to study somewhere that's English language. Not America, not Australia, not New Zealand, it's the UK. So what are the real issues? I've asked all the questions. Why, what, who buys, when, who sells, who pays, where is it done, when, how. Really just to look at the variety that we already have. In the Green Paper, which I want to come on to a little later, but not extensively, we're talking about an increasingly diverse sector in terms of the way in which we deliver things and what we deliver. We're already quite diverse, or we're becoming so. It's not necessarily true of all the traditional universities. And there I think we've got a real problem. Some are grasping the nettle already, others really aren't. So if we go into the who, what, where, why. Why? We want in Britain creating a skilled competitive society. We want to do research because research ends up in becoming technologies and in enabling product and so on. We want to foster entrepreneurism in the UK. I love the old George Bush thing, isn't it? The trouble with the French is they haven't got a word for entrepreneur, which is great. We want higher education because it makes a massive, absolutely massive contribution to the UK economy. Not as massive as a lot of universities think it's going to be. A lot of universities are currently saying they're going to increase their international student base by 50% over the next 5 years. That is just pie in the sky. It's not going to happen, not just because of Theresa May, but it's just not going to happen. We haven't seen the growth over the last 4 years. Madeleine Atkins of the Funding Council showed a slide at the AGM just before Christmas that showed what universities say they're going to do. Then she showed what she calls the blood slide, which is what they are actually possibly going to do. And it shows that a lot of institutions will be unsustainable because they're just adding numbers into international student recruitment in order to make up for the holes in their budgets, and they just won't get them. We want to develop local economies. Universities are very valuable to local economies in many, many different ways. But there was some research done at the university I was at in Wales, which showed that on average a university delivers to the local economy 3 times its turnover. So you take a university that's doing 150 million, it's delivering $250 million to the local economy, plus all the opportunities for entrepreneurism. And in the UK, and this is important from the international side, we mustn't forget the national soft powering impact of having international students studying here. At the moment, a substantial proportion of world leaders in all of the 200 and whatever countries did their first degrees in the UK. And they still have an allegiance to the UK. As we're becoming less welcoming to international students, we're losing that soft power, which is incredibly important. Could become even more important if we have a Brexit, needing to have soft power to get agreements internationally. What about what other people study? Well, I just want to say, it's already a wide variety of things at HE level, from English as a foreign language, foundation pre-degrees, professional apprenticeships. The thing that most people just have in their minds, if you talk to the population, the only thing they think about actually is undergraduate degrees. They're unaware of what actually is being delivered. You've got different subjects which are changing in their emphasis. I don't know why everybody always goes on about STEM subjects. They're actually not the biggest contributors. You probably do better to start thinking about media, which probably makes a rather larger contribution to the UK economy and gets us global reputation. taught postgraduates, research degrees, executive programs. We've already got a very diverse portfolio that we can deliver, but it comes in the end, who's going to deliver it? Who buys these things? Well, school leavers, they now buy it because they get their loans. Because of our history, they don't recognise, perhaps, that they are some of the best off students anywhere in the world, long term. If you look at America, the loans that students get are higher, and they have to pay them back much quicker at higher rates of interest. But we're just not used to that. We're used to it coming out of taxation, which is very different, different perception, but in the end you can end up paying it. It comes from somewhere. It's not a sort of soup well of money that sometimes the government can deal out. Families put a lot of money into the education at HE level. International families particularly put a lot of money in. They're prepared to invest in their children in a big way. Mature students invest, but fewer and fewer. The enormous decline in part-time applications, it's down a staggering percentage. And that's bad for the economy as a whole. Companies are starting to invest in a bigger way, and I think that's a very interesting and very positive thing with the graduate apprenticeships and other things that they're starting to bring in. Lifelong learners, one of the things that the OU was so good at, but they're less prepared to do it now because the cost has gone up almost beyond the affordable. And of course, we now think about when people are doing it, immediately post-school. These things are going to change. This country has got the highest percentage of school leavers going to university of almost any country. If you look in this country, we're up in the high 40% now of students expecting to go to university from leaving school. If you look at a country like Finland, they have a very low percentage go straight from school, but they have a much higher percentage of people who go to university through the whole of their career pathways. So they've got like nearly 70% of people have a university experience, but they do it in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s, when it's more appropriate to them. And I can see us moving in that direction, which is going to have a major impact on UK universities. People now want to follow on from a few years' employment where they're more secure. They want to perhaps take more sandwich programs. They want it as part of their employment with the professional apprenticeships. They need it when there's a career change. They want to do it for lifelong leisure. And you have to ask this question, which came up a bit this morning. Are people going to be happy with one career? Well, it doesn't matter whether they're going to be happy with one career through their lives, they're not going to have the opportunity for it. There was a paper recently that said, in a lifetime, some of the students at university now will have 50 different careers during their time. 50 different employers, 50 different pathways. There's no such thing as employment for life. Who sells higher education? Traditional universities. Yes. Now, I had a big, long conversation with David Willits about 6 or 8 months ago. He said the problem is that the general public only think of traditional universities. That's all they ever think about. He said, and MPs, legislators, are worse. They only think of a very limited number of traditional universities. They think about Oxford, Cambridge, probably the Russell Group, and Anthony Grayling's New College of the Humanities. But there are now good, independent, for-profit and charitable recognised institutions on the government list. There are listed institutions, including the FE colleges and alternative providers, which again, general public and legislators don't think about carefully enough. We have, somebody said this morning, 70 international universities at least in the UK delivering their products, and that will grow. There are top American universities looking up at setting up in Britain right now, from the best of the liberal arts colleges to branch campuses of some of the major universities. And there are the cowboys out there. I mean, the ones who've done so much damage to us all and have ripped so much money out of the student loan company that are now creating problems for us all with the UK VI and with the government. Who pays? The learners. Student loan company, the parents, the sponsors, the employers, the services, they still sponsor higher education, and charities. And of course, the taxpayers. If we only recover about 50% of the money from student loan company loans, it comes out of our taxes in the end. It goes back off the balance sheet and into the revenue side. So we're all actually paying for higher education. And where do people study? The campus. Again, legislators only really think, most of them, about campus-based education. That's far from the future. I mean, it's already changed. We've got all of these places: home, work, mobile learning, global learning, partnerships and articulations. The campus, I once had an argument with Carl Ligo from BPP about this, because he said my beautiful campus in London that we have in Regent's Park would be swept away by a tide of online learning. And I said to him at the time, no, it won't. It will change. We've got students who want to come to a campus in the centre of London for all kinds of purposes, and it won't change for us. It will change for others, and the kind of investments that are going into campuses around the UK at the moment are ill-judged, because people are borrowing substantial sums of money. Their reserves are becoming much less liquid, they're going to be much less sustainable, and suddenly they're going to be left with a lot of property which will be unsaleable, and where they're going to have to pay the interest rates alongside all the monies that they already have to pay in their pension funds. Just on sustainability, Malcolm Gillies, who was the Vice-Chancellor at London Met and was very badly treated there, he did some work for BIS which showed that if you look at where the £9,000 fee goes, £3,000 goes into pension funds. It's paying off the black hole and paying the new contributions. £3,000 goes into research, and all that actually goes into teaching the students is £3,000. If most students knew that and worked that through, I think they'd be even less happy with the loans that they have to take out, and why places like BPP at £6,000 a year represent extraordinary value. And they're not the only ones. There are other really great institutions out there charging similar kinds of fees. How do we teach? Traditional pedagogy. Again, that's what the MPs think about, and the Lords. They think about traditional pedagogy, most of them. But look at all the other things. We've got the opportunity to improve the learning experience by having the flipped classroom concept, sandwich programs, distance learning, online programs, blended bricks and clicks programs, and even my hated one, MOOCs, because most MOOCs are a piece of pants. You talk to the people at Edinburgh who invested huge amounts in MOOCs. It's all lost money because the students don't stay. 2% get through to the end of the programs. I'm sure they enjoy them very much, but the cost is ridiculous. Unless you use it for another purpose, like MOOCs in India or somewhere where there is no other option as a route in, perhaps, to extended education. What are the big issues at the moment? Well, the Green Paper and changes to the sector that we're talking about. The market is changing rapidly. The global market, the UK market, all are changing much quicker than has ever been the case before. And a lot of universities are not moving to keep pace with that. Malcolm Gillies, in a speech a couple of years ago, actually said there are three kinds of university. There are the ones who are the sort of, no, we don't need to change. It's the Lord Liverpool dictum. Every change of every kind at any time is to be strenuously resisted. And, it'll all get right in the end. It won't. There are big threats now. There are the ones who say, well, we can adapt slowly across time. And, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about a new program that they might get on the books by 2019, 2020. We don't have the time to take those long, long decisions now. And then Malcolm said there are the revolutionary ones who are saying, no, the world's changed. We need to change with it. But there's so much resistance in the sector to making those rapid decisions. It's why I think new members of the diverse group of institutions are much more likely to succeed. We've got the changing domestic demographics. We're seeing fewer 18-year-olds. It's going to continue in decline over about the next 6 to 8 years. So the actual domestic marketplace is going down, and it won't be totally made up by other things that we might offer. So the domestic marketplace is going down. We've got increased quality competition around the world. Someone with whom I was engaged in a sort of partnership operation from Australia said, go and see what they're doing in India. And I said, well, India, well, really. And he said, no, he said, they're going to eat your lunch. You go and see what they're doing. An amazing, high-quality education being delivered in India, in Pakistan, in China, in Russia, all over the world, which are starting to be big competition for us in many of the areas where we've excelled. Budget reductions. The government's still taking money out of the HE budget. We've seen big sums come out already. There could be more sums coming out. BIS's budget, we still don't really know how we're going to get, or state-funded institutions are going to get hit by that, but it'll be down. Changing employer and learner expectations. Employers, as you were saying earlier, have a different expectation of what a graduate is now and the kind of graduates they want. They don't want people who are absolutely marvellous at knowing every aspect of accountancy. They want people who have got those additional skills that you were describing. I used to work in the television industry at one stage of my career, which was much more fun than being a Vice-Chancellor. And I would take on graduates, lots of them, and give them a chance. And they may have known every shot that was made in Indian filmmaking from 1938 to 1946, but who cares? What you're looking for is someone with a different set of practical skills. The actual degree they had didn't matter. And I was one of those employers who said, I don't care where you come from if you've got ideas. I said just now, no employment for life. There is a reducing and reduced graduate premium. You can look at the graduate premium nationally and say it's X. You start looking at individual institutions and individual programs, and there is a negative graduate premium. There are people who would have been substantially better off across their working lives if they'd never gone to university. The Green Paper, the TEF, who knows? I was at a meeting earlier this week where we were looking at the TEF and what might be there and what mightn't be there. Who knows what the metrics are? They are, all of them, fundamentally confounded. You can take one, do you really want to have the TEF and the other things judged on whether the students have had a happy life? Whether they've been bribed by their institution, as some of them are? That's not going to work. Do you take the Delhi survey? No. I mean, that's incredibly inaccurate in terms of long-term projection. What do you take? There's creating diversity. I think that's a great idea. I'm absolutely behind it. And even though, on the ACDAP, we actually say we would love to have more institutions apply for degree awarding powers and the university title. The ones who say, well, we're not getting a chance, it's because they actually haven't applied, and actually they wouldn't make the cut-off because they're not quality institutions. There's some great ones out there, but they're just not applying at the moment. Facilitating that entry for new providers, you can't cut the time down to get into the sector. When we met with Joe Johnson recently, we pointed out that all the people who've got degree powers who are not state-funded have spent at least 10 years delivering validated programs from other institutions to give us the experience and the confidence and the knowledge of the systems to be able to deliver. I absolutely love Joe Johnson's idea that institutions that are headed up by famous academics should instantly be given degree awarding powers. He's talking about AC Grayling. You'll see I talk about AC Grayling a lot because I'm appalled. I'm not even sure he's a great academic. I think he's a public intellectual, which is slightly different. We all know how complex a university is to run. All of the things that you have to do in terms of validating programs, ensuring quality, coherence of the programs, making sure that they are comparable with the standards in the rest of the sector, supporting students, advising people interfaces with employers. It's not, I've had a wonderful idea for an Oxbridge in London. Absurd. They're talking about revising the quality assurance process. This has to be one of the maddest things that we could possibly do. I said earlier we have the QAA that is globally recognised, and we're now talking about dismantling it and putting it out for tender to people like Tribal and Capita. It's a nonsense. The first thing Tribal and Capita did, by the way, when they were approached, was to go to the QAA and say, we know nothing about this, but could we partner with you to deliver it? Oof. Yeah. And what we're seeing in the QAA at the moment is the best staff are leaving. We are going to dismantle it and let the best staff disappear. Simplify the HE architecture, great. Much complexity at the moment. We could simplify it enormously, cut down the central costs of HE. Improve access and social mobility, absolutely. We can do that, but you don't need to do it by the sort of Office of the Handicapper General. It's a wrong way to do it. There are ways to do it by making institutions take more responsibility for it, but let them fix their fees accordingly if they want to do that. Anybody who hasn't heard of the Handicapper General, by the way, not our good friend at the offer office, the story by Kurt Vonnegut. I hugely recommend it to you. But it shows what universities could be like in the future, being handicapped beyond belief. We need to reduce the complexity and bureaucracy in research, undoubtedly. How much did the last REF cost? 200 and something million pounds? Just an absurdity. And enhancing productivity within universities. There are a lot of people still getting away with murder. And we're going through a process at the moment at my institution of looking at this in order to be equitable to our staff, to make sure that the staff who are working their guts out are the ones who get rewarded, and those who aren't working up to at least a decent level are the staff who are shown the door. We don't want to lose staff, we want to keep them, but they've got to be actually working. Quickly, the Green Paper proposals. Reduced evidence of financial sustainability. What? You want to start institutions where they haven't proven substantial sustainability? Ridiculous. Reduced period of delivery of validated awards. No, people won't get it in 2 years. Criteria of eligibility, it's going to be shaky. Eliminating the size criterion. I've just done an interview over lunchtime for The Guardian, and they were asking, well, how many universities might there be? And if you look at the way in which it's structured, it's very similar to the Americans. We could have 1,000 universities in Britain. Some of them, 50 people studying Latvian basket weaving. The criteria are very, very weak now for university titles because they're getting rid of the distinction between university and degree powers. Right. Worries, quality assurance, I've gone through the worries really. But a big worry, Brexit. If we leave the EU, we will have serious problems in terms of visas, in terms of access to Erasmus, in terms of access to research funding. And the UK VI, they're always a worry. Actions, protect and promote our brand. Make sure we hold on to that. Control the quality. Remove a fees cap, I would say. Universal access to the SLC within limits. Maybe you cap it at 9,000. Everybody is able to have that. But if you go above 9,000, you put money into social mobility. Create an equitable market, ensure access, simplify regulation and process. We mustn't gamble with the UK Aichi reputation. I mean, in the immortal words of Kenny Rogers in his magnificent tune, The Gambler, if you're going to play the Game Boy, you've got to play it right. You've got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. We've got a good hand at the moment in this country. We've got the reputation, we've got the QAA. We've certainly got to hold on to them to win the game. Folding them up would be a certain loss. We can't walk away from our world reputation, and we should certainly run from precipitate action, which is proposed in the Green Paper, to give up what we have. Thank you.